Say you want to be a teacher one day, or a flight attendant, or maybe even a tour guide. So these three careers all have one thing in common. They have to be repetitive. For any of you who are going to take on a career one day that involves memorization and speaking about the same topic over and over again, I'm here to teach you how to overcome sounding like a robot while staying energized at the same time. So my name is Katie Trigg, and this past summer I had a lot of experience giving presentations to hundreds of people day after day at Anheuser-Busch Brewery, St. Louis. Now, as much as I did love this job, it did get pretty old, but I couldn't let my audience see that. I did have my script memorized, but the daily struggle I had to remind myself of was keeping the crowd of 100 plus people engaged throughout my entire tour without sounding repetitive or annoyed to be there. So I'm here today to explain to you all how to stay energized, overcome repetition, and avoid sounding like a robot. If you're someone who's going to have to say the same presentation over and over again sometime down the future. So here are some tips on how to do so. So tip number one is show your pride within your presentation. You've got to get pumped up beforehand and remind yourself why you are speaking. So for me, before I would go out and present to my tour, I would get myself excited for it. I'd ask myself, why am I doing this? What is my purpose? But for me, I loved the company and I loved learning about the history. So I wanted to go out there and show my tour what I knew. So for me, it was easy to have passion and show that enthusiasm. But even if it isn't a topic of your choice, really the only thing I recommend is just fake it. You've got to go out there and show the crowd that you're enthusiastic. So now that I think we can all agree that it's easy to have a conversation with someone, we're all human, right? When we have conversations with people, our voice tends to fluctuate. It doesn't really stay at the same tone the entire time. But when some people present, this might not always be the case. So unfortunately, many presentations do become unnatural and sound robotic. So this gets me to my tip number two. Speak like a human being would. It's that simple. Just try to vary your tone and put some character into it. So I actually have a personal example. Before I would take my tour out on their tour, if I were reading straight from the spiel, it would be, so attention ladies and gentlemen, it is time to go outside the tour. Please keep your children by your sides at all times, no eating or drinking on the tour, and stay with your tour guide at all times. Now that sounded very robotic. The way I would present it, I would just say, all right guys, so we're about to head out. A few safety precautions for you. It's really not a dangerous tour. For you family right here, just try to keep your kids with you at all times. No eating or drinking please on the tour. And just stay with me at all times and you guys will be 100% safe. So there you can see the difference of sounding robotic and sounding like a human. Just try to put a little life into it. So since this point talks about acting like a human, let's continue to bring that into tip number three. So your audience might be a group of complete strangers to you, but that doesn't mean you can't act like you don't know them. Well, without being creepy, of course. So tip number three, you need to engage with your audience. You need to make them feel important and make them know that you want to teach them something new. You got to throw some jokes into the show the crowd that you're comfortable with them as well. That's something that really helped me. So another personal example, if I was giving the tour, it kind of looked like there was a few deadbeats out in the crowd. So I would just ask, does anyone know when Budweiser was invented? And I'd stand there really awkwardly. No one would answer. So I would say, all right guys, so this is actually how the tour works. If you interact with me and you answer my questions, that's how you're going to gain your free beer in the end. So I'd get a few laughs and then eventually people would raise their hands. But I had to let them know that I was comfortable with them and that it was going to be a fun tour that day. So the last point I'm going to bring about for tip number three to engage with the audience, just try to remember to smile. I cannot stress that enough, especially if you're someone who's really easy to read, especially like me. I'm an open book. You can always tell what I'm thinking. That's going to be the fastest way to make your audience feel connected with you. So no matter where you're presenting or who you are presenting to, it's so important to bring life and enthusiasm to the table. If you're someone like me who will give the same presentation over and over again, it's really important to remind yourself of these three helpful tips to avoid sounding like a robot. Have pride with your content, speak conversationally, still professionally, and make your audience feel like you want to be there and that you care about what they are going to learn. So thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope these three tips might benefit some of you in the future.